I'd like to welcome everybody to HBCU Coaches Corner. I'm your host, Rocky Miller, along with my co-host, Mr. Campbell, the Rattler himself. But our featured host is always the reason why we're here at HBCU Coaches Corner is none other than the SWAC legend himself, Johnnie Cole. We're on one cool Mississippi night. He dueled our guests and threw 6 touchdowns. I don't know who he threw them to, but I probably know who his opponent threw him to. But with no further ado, my man, Johnnie Cole.
What's up, man? What's up? Hey, well, let's get so straight. It wasn't no.
Hey, you muted, Coach.
It was a Texas night. So we need to get that straight.
You, Coach.
Yeah, it was a Texas night, not a Mississippi night.
Can y'all hear?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can hear him now. My bad.
Can you hear?
Yeah, it was me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't no Mississippi night. It was a Texas night.
It was Houston, a Texas night. Okay.
Houston, Texas. And but man, I tell you what, man, I can't say enough about the man, not necessarily the player, because tonight I want to get into the player, and then we're gonna move on to his new position and all that. But as Bishop Campbell said, man, when you're talking about legendary SWAC football, man, you know, this guy's got to be mentioned in the top. And the thing about it, he came from nowhere. And we're gonna go back, and I want him to start there because, you know, so oftentimes, you know, we don't give SWAC, you know, the attention that it needs, you know, because we had extraordinary guys. And it's fortunate that the guy I'm about to bring in, we played back in the day when they were drafting, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 SWAC players. You know, so the competition was stiff. The opportunities was very few. When you got in there, you had to make sure that you got things done. And I tell you, man, this guy was he was Air McNair before there was Air McNair. You know, he kind of paved the way, as well as Doug Williams paved the way for him. And as my dear friend, always also a competitor, my friend Willie, the satellite Totten.
Oh man, let me I'm gonna get it right eventually, Coach. Let me get the screen right. There we go, Coach. All right,
Coach. Man, Coach, I can't keep up with you, man. Boy, one thing you got, at least you got some gold on, you know. And we want to welcome you to the show. You now is the offensive coordinator for Fort Valley State University, and so we want to welcome you to the show, man. And thank you had the time to share with us tonight.
Hey guys, I appreciate you guys having me. And yes, I'm a Wildcat. I'm ready to strike.
You know, I'm fortunate. I opened my analyst career up at Fort Valley last year when they played Clark at that shootout. And man, the thing that I didn't know about Fort Valley was, man, the campus was so beautiful. You know, they've done, you know, I played them when I was at Lane College. I was a head coach there. And what they've done to the stadium, you know, was just fantastic, man. And I just didn't believe that Fort Valley State University, man, was that big. I think it was a great university. You know, the people there worked with us. I was with HBCU TV Gold. All the administrators around made sure that we had what we need, and it was a first-class operation. So I want to take my hat off to Fort Valley State athletic administrator as well as the president.
It's no doubt, Johnny, that and like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on, and that was my feeling exactly when I had the opportunity to come to Fort Valley. I was very impressed. I was very impressed with the campus. I was very impressed with the facilities. I was very impressed though with the warm arms of the administrators, the athletic director, AD Daphne Johnson, the president, Dr. Jones. When I walked through those doors and had the opportunity to come here, and I was just amazed. I was coming from Southern, and then you comparing, Southern, and you comparing Fort Valley. I was very, very pleased. And you talking about right there along with one of the greatest institutions in HBCUs is Southern University. And now you're looking at Fort Valley, and Fort Valley is right there beside Southern.
Well, we hope that they understand who they got here. They got one of our SWAC legendary guys. Coach, man, of course, we talk a lot on and off the field. We kind of really met guys at the SWAC tour. That's where we kind of really met personally, and we both was juniors, and we had a great time meeting each other. Coach Totten, 5,000 yards. I want my audience to understand this man threw for 5,000 yards and 56 touchdowns in one season.
No, 58, Johnny. I threw 2 touchdowns in the playoffs.
Oh, okay. Look, you got to eat it all, Coach, because when we start talking about when we battle, I'm going to make sure your numbers are right with mine, because I want to say I got you that night, but you won the game, but I got you. But,
yeah, you did. Coach, you did. I can admit you did. You got me in. Yeah. You were the first quarterback to have me benched, and Coach Cooley benched me that night because I did outdo you.
Wow. We're going to get into that, Coach, real deep, because you were surprised. I didn't play in the third quarter either. So my coach had benched me too. Coach, man, you choose Mississippi Valley State. Because I want everybody to know where we start. We're going to get to Fort Valley because that's the most important. Man, why did you choose Mississippi Valley State, and how did it all come together?
Well, I tell you, that's a long story. I mean, back in high school, we ran the wishbone, the Notre Dame box, and during our time, the early part of the 80s, the late 70s, everybody was running the football, and how I got to Mississippi Valley. I got to Mississippi Valley as a punter because we didn't throw the ball a lot in high school. We ran the football. My both running backs rushed for over 1,000 yards in the backfield, and all I had to do in high school just turn around and hand the ball off. We had great running backs, and I ran the ball a little bit as well, but we didn't throw the ball as much, and I got discovered really as a punter.
You hear that, Bishop? The punter. But that says stuff about Archie Gunslinger Cooley. Rest his soul, that that was the thing about those coaches back in them days. They could look at guys and make sure they know how to put guys in different positions. So our hat goes out to Coach Cooley and his coaching staff for bringing you there. Now, where did you meet Jerry Rice? Did y'all start at freshman, or it kind of worked into it?
We started as true freshmen. Jerry came in as a true freshman, and he had been recruited also, and they didn't throw the ball a lot at Crawford at B.L. Moore High School. So they didn't know his talent either. A lot of people passed up on Jerry because they wasn't throwing the ball, and they were running the football a lot in high school, and he kind of got passed up. And like you say, I'll take my hat off to Coach Cooley. I give Coach Cooley all the credit for really knowing how to project talent. He saw something in Jerry. He saw something in myself, and he saw something in all of the guys that he brought in that year. He brought in 30 freshmen that year, and he pretty much kind of had an idea of what he was trying to do, and we didn't have no idea what he was trying to do. And he brought guys from small schools. I went to a small high school. Jerry went to a small high school, and he didn't recruit a lot of kids from the big high schools. And he got a lot of guys who probably wouldn't have had an opportunity to go to college if Coach Cooley hadn't given him that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that people don't understand, even today, you know, when you're coming to recruiting, everybody is running for these 5-star and 4-star players. Now, you know, you're a coach, you've been around, you've been a head coach before. What star would you give yourself?
Well, to be honest, you know, in high school, you know, I knew I could throw the football. I didn't have to throw the football in high school because of the scheme that we were running. But if I had to give myself a star, I would give myself a 4-star punter. I mean, I could really punt the football. I was averaging 45 yards a punt in high school, and that was kind of hard back in high school. You got a kid, a black kid that could punt the football, and I was real good at it. I was very good at punting the football, and that's kind of how I got discovered.
Wow, 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 wow. You guys want to jump
Yeah,
in, or y'all
yeah.
taking my lead?
Of course, I wanna jump in here. Coach, you say you were recruited as a punter, right?
That's right.
How did Coach Cooley discover that you could throw the ball as well?
Well, like I say, you know, in high school, when we did throw the ball in high school, it was a touchdown. You know, everybody was trying to play 7 and 8 guys in the box to try to stop our running game. And I had a guy named Willie Ware, and also I had a guy named Roger Totten, which is my brother. They were great receivers. We threw the ball probably 6 times in the game, and out of those 6 attempts, 4 of them were touchdowns. And because the receiver used to be just wide open. And that's how I kind of got discovered. They knew I could throw the football, but I wasn't asked to throw the football a lot in high school.
Wow, 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 wow.
When you arrived on campus there at Mississippi Valley, did you have any idea you would have a chance to start as a freshman?
No, actually, I was redshirted, and that's how Jerry and I kind of got separated. We came there at the same time. Jerry came as a true freshman in 81. I was a true freshman in 81. Out of those 30 recruits, Jerry was the only freshman that played that year as a true freshman. And Coach Cooley redshirted everybody else. So when we kind of watched Jerry, and I didn't play my freshman year because I kind of stayed hurt. You know, playing in the Mississippi Delta, those football fields were pretty bad, and I usually hurt my ankles a lot. So instead of risking a year, Coach Cooley redshirted me. And I think that was his plan anyway, to redshirt that class. But Jerry was such an outstanding player that he was the only freshman that year that played.
Okay, so when did you actually get a chance to show your talent on the field?
Going into my redshirt year, sophomore year in class, I walked up during the spring of my freshman year, and I told all the quarterbacks, it was 7 quarterbacks, and I told those guys, next year I'm gonna be the starting quarterback. And at the time, you know, they used to tease us about being a crab. They said, "Oh, crab, you're not gonna play. You're not gonna play here, not behind me." You know, and we had some big quarterbacks. Maurice Johnson was like 6'5", 230. You had Coleman. You had 4 or 5 guys in front of me were upperclassmen that probably would have had no chance of starting. But I told them I was going to be the starting quarterback when I got my opportunity. And when I got my opportunity, I never looked back.
So you were recruited by Coach Cooley, and did you know when you got recruited that he had that passing attack, or did you and Jerry develop that chemistry that created that passing attack? Was it the scheme, or was the scheme already there when y'all arrived, or was it something that developed when y'all arrived?
I think it's something developed because when we got there, like I say, everybody back in those days, everybody was running the football. We were actually running the veer. Excuse me. We were running the veer, and I had that background coming from J.C. George, we ran the football, the Notre Dame box, which is the wishbone. We did run that, so I could run that type offense. And Coach Cooley started out running that offense. But then after he developed, he had some receivers that was pretty good. Joe Thomas, Cleo Armstrong, Curtis DeBar-Laban. So that what kind of forced him to do something different. And he tried the no huddle. He knew that I could throw the football. Once I got there and really developed to be a pretty good passer, he knew then that he had something different. And he wanted to do something that no one was doing at the time. And he started throwing the football, and that's what we started doing.
Yeah. It's amazing, Coach. It's amazing what the numbers that y'all put up when today's football game is at least about 68-70% of passing. And I still don't know no quarterbacks that don't throw for 5,300 yards in one season. You know what I mean? That's incredible. And if that would happen now as opposed to then, I wonder if you would have got drafted to the NFL, you know, as Steve McNair did.
Well, I tell you, those some times that was incredible. I think it was something new that they were not accustomed to, the all-out passing, and I really think people thought it was a joke. I remember the media asked Coach Cooley that we out there playing sandlot football, and we really had some big numbers. Chuck Prophet, at the time, the late Chuck Prophet was the athletic director. They thought that they were padding stats until some of the media actually came to the game and watched us playing, and they were just in awe of how we threw the football around, how guys was catching the football, and how guys were catching a 5-yard slant pass and taking for 40 and 30 yards for a touchdown.
Hey, Coach, I want to see if I can play something, Coach. You in a lot of Hall of Fames, Coach. You in a lot of Hall of Fames. I mean, I don't think there's a Hall of Fame that was created that you're not in, Coach. But I want to play this video of the Black College Hall of Fame, just to give our people who some idea of what you were able to do there, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the audio.
Willie Satellite Totten was born on July 4th, 1960.
Can y'all hear the audio?
Yeah, turn up just a little bit.
As a quarterback for the Mississippi Valley State.
I got it all the way, guys. Hold on.
Over 50 1AA records, playing in a no-huddle offense called the Satellite Express. Willie Totten and his favorite target, wide receiver Jerry Rice, flourished in this system. Both men earning nicknames for their incredible play. Totten became known as Satellite, while Rice was tagged World, and their coach, Archie Cooley, earned the label Gunslinger for running this offense that allowed his team to score in bunches. Totten twice led the nation in passing and is Division I AA's all-time leader with 139 career touchdown passes. He ranks second in career passing yards with 12,711. 5 times he threw for more than 530 yards in one game. He went on to have brief stints in the NFL, CFL, and Arena Football League. In 1999, the school honored Totten and Rice by renaming the stadium the Rice-Totten Stadium. In 2005, Totten was enshrined in both the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame and the College Football Hall of Fame, becoming Mississippi Valley's first College Football Hall of Fame inductee. He was inducted into the Mississippi Valley Athletic Hall of Fame in 2006. Willie Satellite Totten, class of 2014, Black College Football Hall of Fame.
All right, I wanted to show that to kind of give our people who may not be as familiar with what you've done in Black college football, and really, your story is bigger than just Black college football, Coach Totten. what you, Jerry Rice, Archie Cooley, and your teammates were able to do really revolutionized the passing game, not only at the college level, but at the pro level. Kind of tell us, did you guys know what you were doing while you were doing that?
I don't think so. I think when Coach Cooley came out with that offense in practice, it seemed like he was just, just coming from the hip. I'll never forget at practice, he said, I tell you what, let's just line up on the ball. At the time, we were running a huddle. He just told us, just line up on the ball. He said, Jerry, you go over there. Cleo, you go over there. Joe Thomas, you go over there. And, it called it the empty set now, where you got 3 receivers on one side, 2 on the other side. And we didn't know anything about that back then. And we were just looking at the stress that it was putting on the defense. Because if we walked a guy out, the defense had to walk somebody out. And that's why, now you talk about numbers. And I don't really think Coach Cooley, I think he had a vision, but I think he had no idea that his vision was going to revolution the entire passing game like we did. Even though I'll never forget when Coach Cooley went to the 49ers and when he went there, actually they took his ideals. They took his ideals and they started calling it the West Coast offense. And now everybody is doing it now. And I'll never forget when Coach Cooley came back and told us, we were watching them. Matter of fact, this is when Jerry had gone on to the NFL, and they was running some of the same formations that we were running in college. They were actually running at the 49ers. And then we say, look, we run that play. We run that formation. We run that play, and had no idea that they got that from us. It's just amazing how Coach Cooley took it to another level.
Man,
I don't think Totten, and we can kind of go over this. How many guys went to pro on that team? I know Carl Byron, DeBark Curtis, you, Bryce.
We had at that year, Jerry came out. When Jerry came out, we had 3 guys to go get drafted the year Jerry came out in '84. But actually, that next year, which was in '85, we had 9 guys to go get drafted.
Wow.
85. We had 9
from Mississippi Valley.
From Mississippi Valley, we had that year. Carl Byron got drafted. Freddie Parker got drafted. Freddie Parker went to the Green Bay Packers. Carl Byron went to the Buffalo Bills. Willie Ware, who was our kickoff specialist, he went to the Green Bay Packers. We had 3 offensive linemen got drafted that year. And we had Joe Thomas, who went to Denver Broncos. And we had Curtis DeBarlaben the year before he went to the Houston Gamblers. So we had guys on that team to get drafted in. And no one really said a whole lot about that because of, Jerry was the kind of the highlight. But we had guys to get an opportunity. And we know that we give all that credit to Coach Cooley because a lot of those guys, and I think JC said it earlier, we were nobody. I mean, we were guys from small high schools. No one really knew about us until we went to Mississippi Valley and really made a name for ourselves, and the rest of it is history.
Yeah. That's one of the things, Todd, that you know this too. One of the things I never worried about recruiting when I became a head coach. You just got to go find them. You kind of know where they are, and you got to develop them and make them into what. And nobody wants to do that anymore. The new coaches now, everybody wants to get the microwave guy that he's already a ready guy. And Bishop, and of course, Rocky, you learning, that was just at Mississippi Valley State. What about Grambling, Jackson State, Texas Southern, Alcorn? They all had great players.
Right.
I want to ask Mr. Campbell something, being that he's our SWAC historian, right? At the time that Willie Totten and Jerry Rice was playing at Mississippi Valley, what was the perception of Valley at that time? Can you kind of frame that up about what was Valley prior to them arriving on campus?
I'm gonna tell you like this, because see, once I get going, I'm gonna get going. I ain't gonna let y'all talk for the next 15 minutes because we got the satellite on. Because see, y'all dance around stuff. So I got to get into it. But let me tell you something, and Coach knows this. They weren't a rival of Jackson State. They played Jackson State. That's honest. And Valley was Valley. And there was a little school up there in Itabena. They come down and, they play, and Jackson State put 35, 40 on, and then they go on about their business. And that's what it was, because it was Valley. And like I said, I'm going to let y'all ask y'all a question. I'm getting ready to set Coach up on how that took off, because there's a couple of similar games the year before that went into the magical season of 84. So, Rocky, that's what it was. It was Valley. Like I say, they were up there in the Delta. But again, you're talking about during the time where you're talking about Jackson State. You're talking about Grambling at their height, at their zenith, where you're talking about they're putting it in. Doug Williams had just left. You know what I mean? And things like that. So you're looking at those guys, and then, it was just for people in Jackson, that was just another game on the schedule.
Don't forget Alcorn. Alcorn,
right. Well, that's what I'm saying. But that was their rival. But Valley wasn't their rival. So now, Rocky, are you done? Because
I'm done. I'm ready to learn.
Okay, so now, Coach, listen, we got to school these folks on a couple of things. So one of the things, you guys started the 82 season. You were 5-5. That was really the best time. Right. You roll into the 83 season, and you play Jackson State, the closest you played them. Then you end up tying Grambling and beating Tennessee State at the end of the year. Right. Did you guys start to feel that, wait a minute, we kind of got something here, and that we kind of see when you start in the 82 season? Because that's when people really discovered satellite talent and like, wait a minute, hold on, these guys got some talent. And that 83 season was the one where people in Jackson were like, wait a minute now, they just tied Grambling down at Grambling and beat Tennessee State, a team that I think at that time, that went 9-2 that year. Right. So can you talk about that first, Coach?
I think that's a great point there, Brother Campbell. I mean, it really started, I think, when Coach Cooley redshirted that first class. When he redshirted that first class of 29 guys, and Jerry was the only one that played his true freshman year, we had a whole year to kind of gel together. And at the time, we really wasn't running the spread offense. I think Coach started developing that over the period of time, but we had a lot of talent. I mean, we had the offensive line. You talking about the ton of fun. They call them the ton of fun. Those guys up there 6'5", 6'6", I mean, 350, 345, that could move and could run, that other people looked at them as being fat boys and they were too big to run and they couldn't play. But Coach Cooley developed. I mean, we developed over the years. And like you said, I never had a losing season at Mississippi Valley. And it started in 82 when my first year I started. And we went 5-5, like you said. And then that next year, I think when we went 7-3-1, that's when it really started for us in 83. And that was a year that I hurt my knee. I hurt my knee against Southern that year. And that was the year that we came back and we tied Grambling for homecoming. And I think that's when it really kind of sinked in that we had something special at Valley. And I think that's when the players really started believing. Because in the summertime, we had our entire team in summer school, and we practiced all the way up until we got ready to play. And people don't understand, we practiced 4 times a day. I mean, it was 4 times a day at the time. And we didn't complain like, guys complain now that we practicing too long. It was no such thing as practicing too long in the Delta. We go back at the Hideaway. It was on the backside of the campus. Nobody paid us no attention, and we just practiced. We practiced and we practiced, and we got better, and we started making teams in the conference believe that Mississippi Valley was for real.
Now, Coach, we moved to the 84 season, and people are now, it's starting to bubble, and people are starting to hear about this offense. So you guys start the 84 season. You play Kentucky State. And I remember in the Clarion Ledger, you guys went 86-0.
Right.
And nobody saw the game. It wasn't on TV. All we saw in the paper, wait a minute, Valley scored 86 points. But of course, people was like, hey, who, it's Kentucky State. A lot of people definitely in Jackson didn't know who Kentucky State was. Then you guys come back and you play Washburn.
Yep.
And then you guys you go 77. The next week is the game in Jackson.
That's right. That's right.
And Rock is here, and to my Jack. Coach, let me tell you something. Let me tell you one, and Coach will admit this. Even though the Alcorn game was the biggest, to me, the most important game that season was that Jackson State game. They come in there, Jackson State had beaten them 27 straight years.
28.
28. Okay,
Yep.
Correct me. Because I'm going off the top of my dome. So 28 years.
Right.
And you guys come in here, and this is the Jackson State Tigers. And 50,000 people, Coach. And they say 60, well, as Scott is saying, 60,000 strong. It was 50,000 strong.
Right.
And Coach, you guys win that game. And let me just kind of roll this. You guys win that game 49-32. First of all, talk about being in that atmosphere in Jackson. Beautiful night. And you guys showed the whole world what the Satellite Express was about.
Well, I think it started the year before in '82 when Jackson beat us. They beat us in Memphis at the Liberty Bowl, and that seemed like that whole year. That's all Coach Cooley. Coach Cooley was a graduate of Jackson State, and that was something that he always talked about, beating Jackson State. And coming up to that game, we just came off of 2 games where we dominated the opponent, Kentucky State and Washburn, and that was our true test. Our true test when we played Jackson State, if we could score against Jackson State and we could beat Jackson State, we knew right then that we definitely had made it. And that whole week, everybody thought that it was a fluke when we played those teams, that we scored all those points and it wasn't real. And we were just when we got to Jackson State was going to beat us like they always beat us. But I think that week we made believers out of ourselves because we were determined for Coach Cooley that we were going to beat Jackson State. And trust me, when we went in that stadium, we had our mind made up that we were going to win that game. And Jackson State pulled everything they could out of the hat, but they just couldn't do it. And I'll never forget Coach Cooley, ran around. We did a parade around the stadium, shaking hands, shaking fans' hands, and people asked me what's the most memorable game I had in my career, and that's always been the game that I talked about. I never talk about the Alcorn game. I always talk about that Jackson State game because we had beat Alcorn before, but we had never beat Jackson. And to do that, I mean, that's always going to be my top game forever. Same thing with Jerry. When you talk to Jerry, he'll say the exact same thing. When we beat Jackson State, that's probably the most memorable game of my career.
Now, Coach, wait, hold on, Rock. Hold on. Slow down. Wait a minute. I'm cooking. So, Coach, you go for 526 yards in that game, and you're under the lights. And let me ask you a question, because one of the things I remember, because the game had kind of tightened up a little bit, and I remember. Do you remember the play when Jerry basically scores the touchdown to put you guys ahead? And it was kind of one of those ones I think they tried to blitz you, which everybody was like, "Wait a minute." Do you remember that play, Coach? When they kind of
I know every play that happened.
kind of talk about that play, Coach, because I think when I go back and remember that, it was kind of like you looked at Jerry like, I know they're not about to do this. You hit this go route because, and I wonder because the guy, because I mean, like you said, they were doing zone, they were doing man to man, and I'm going to go back and look and see who the guy that was playing corner because I think he got drafted too.
No, the guy he beat was number 24. I never forget. I think his name was Woods.
Woods.
I think he's a principal In Birmingham, I think. I think his name was Woods. And yes, I remember that they came with an all-out blitz, and because I had a brace on, and they felt that I couldn't run. But all I need is a little time because I could throw the ball backpedaling as far as I could throw the ball going forward. And I think that was one of the things that was unique about my style of play. I could drop back and still throw the football while I'm dropping back. Never set my feet, never plant or anything. I can just still throw it 30, 40 yards off one leg. And I think that's what happened on that play. They tried to blitz me, and I knew Jerry right now. We had our little signals that we give each other, and it was just a nod of the head. And that right there let me know Jerry finna go downtown, and all I had to do just make the throw.
Now, Rocky, let me tell you what's funny. There's a picture, and I was like, literally, there are 4 Jackson State defenders in his face, and as Coach said, literally off the back foot. And everybody to think about it, when you're talking about 50,000 people in the stadium, you could hit 100 because we were like, no, and that ball just landed. And then Jerry did that famous hands up.
Hands up.
Hands up. And then that's what it was. Now, Rocky, I'm going to let you go ahead because I still
I want to ask, so you guys, I remember this growing up, like you guys were one of the teams that they would break in, and for whatever reason on the ABC game of the week, whether it be Notre Dame or Ohio State, they would report on what's going on with you guys because what you guys were doing was so unique, right? But the one thing I always looked at was kind of, and you can look at, and I suggest you guys go look at Willie Totten highlights. There's tons of them out there. Coach, you had a way of passing the ball that made it look like it was a laser, like it was a pinpointed laser. Did you have a special grip of the ball and it was always a spiral? Like, how were you able to do that, Coach?
Well, Rocky, I think I was blessed with big hands, man. I got some hands that is unreal. I mean, and I could grip the football, and I didn't have to have the threads. I could throw the football without the threads, and I had a quick release. And I think that was my access that really helped me out a lot because I could get the ball out quick. So by you blitzing me, it didn't matter because I could get the ball out quick because I had a quick release.
And the other thing I always noticed, Coach, you could always hit now these is highlights, but you were always hitting the guys on the run, right? Was that something you guys practiced or you were always hitting Jerry on the run or one of the guys? It was almost dead in stride. Was that one of your special talents, or was that a function of the offense, or kind of just?
I think what happened, we developed that over the period of time, and I don't throw it to the I don't throw the balls to the receiver. I throw it to a spot, and it's up to that receiver to go to that spot and catch the football. And a lot of guys didn't play because they couldn't get to the football, and that's why Jerry. A lot of times people see Jerry catching the ball, and because I'm throwing it to a spot, and that's something that I developed over the years, and that's something that I try to teach my quarterbacks now, that you throw the ball to a spot, and it's up to that receiver to get to that spot to catch that ball.
Now, Coach, let me walk you through. So you guys, you beat Jackson, you go down and you beat Southern 63-45. But I think the seminal game for you guys also far as exposure was the game in the Hoosier Dome against Grambling.
Against Grambling, yes.
40,000 people on BET. This is the first time we really, because now, people, because again, guys, and this is what, there was no internet. There was no thing. You just had to read the paper. And if you weren't in Mississippi, you didn't see the level of play. But that game, on BET, Circle City Classic. Tell us about that game and how much that meant for you and the Valley program, that everybody in the country, because that's when everybody was like, hey, you got to watch this game. And I think that was, and if I remember correctly, that held the record for a long time as the highest rated BET game ever.
Right. And that was a great game. Charlie Neal He called that game, and we talk about that now a lot. When Charlie and I sit down and we always talk about that game. And at that time, we were bigger than life. We just beat Jackson State. We just beat Southern. And now we going to play against the legendary Eddie Robinson. And I think the hype for that game was just as big as when we beat Jackson State for the first time. And at the time, Grambling, they were undefeated. They were heavily favored, even though we had set all the records and we had threw all the touchdowns, but everybody still felt that Grambling was going to beat us. And I remember saying that people were talking about you guys are going up against the legendary coach Eddie Robinson. And I'll never forget, I said that all due respect to Coach Robinson is not going to play. We're going to play those guys that when they get on that field, they're going to be in trouble. If they can't stop that express, they're going to be in trouble. And that's exactly what we did. They could not stop us. I mean, they scored too, and we just outscored them. And I'll never get Jerry caught a slant pass and went 70 yards for a touchdown.
Now, Coach, let me ask you a question. Now, did y'all get new jerseys for that game? Because that red was red that day. Did they give y'all new jerseys for that game? Because everything looked crispy that game.
Well, that's the game we broke out the all red.
That right? Okay.
Coach Cooley was a guy that he was a showman. And he liked to dress nice, and he wanted us. He always said, if you look good, you play good, and we use that as a slogan. We use that as a motivation. And so when we come out on that field, we wanted to be clean. And that's when we broke out the red uniforms, and that red looked good on TV. When I used to go back and look at those games, and it's just amazing to me how we just exploded. And Grambling had a good football team. Grambling was heavily favored, and when we came out in all that red, and we put on the show.
What was the score of that game, Coach?
That game,
48-36. 48-36.
48-36. Yeah.
Now, Coach. Now, you beating the big bad Grambling Tigers, and then you guys roll into Houston, Texas, and happen to play against somebody on this screen. The legendary. Now, Coach, tell us about that game. Now, that game there was a 55-42 victory. Now, tell us the story. Hey, Coach, you said you got benched that game.
Yeah, I got benched, and that's the time when JC and I became friends. That year we went on the SWAC tour. We met each other on the bus, and you know how guys talk smack. I was never a smack talker, but JC always been a smack talker. And he was talking a lot of noise. I was like, who is this little bitty dude talking all this noise? But he could play though. I mean, he could really play. I think that year we ended up 1-2. Of course, JC ended up was number 2, and I was number 1. But we had a battle, man. When we went in that stadium, I'll never forget. They had a good combination too, because we couldn't stop JC and we couldn't stop Corbett. That was his number 1 guy, and they were, man, as soon as we would score, they would score. And I have always had respect for JC game, and he could really throw the football. They didn't throw the football as much as we did, but they were throwing the football a lot that game. And I think it came down to the shootout, and Coach Cooley thing was his biggest thing. Can't nobody stop mine, and that game, I think he got a little upset because Texas Southern was outplaying us. They really was outplaying us, and he got so mad when we finally got the lead. And he took me out and took Jerry out, and we just ran the football to try to keep the ball away from Texas Southern. And that's how we ended up winning the game. I think the game ended up being 55-45. And we almost lost that game.
Yeah. It was a good game, man. But, talking about the SWAC tour, man, I can remember Victor Hall, Jackie, what's Jackie linebacker? Yeah,
Jackie Walker.
Jackie Walker. And, you know, and those rides, Todd, when we used to be back and listen to the Gunslinger and Eddie and Marino Cassim and W.C. Gordon. I mean, you had all this greatness on this bus, man. It was just incredible, guys. Just being a 20-year-old man, you know, watching these guys, and they were showmen. I mean, they would get up and we would go from city to city to city where we play at and have this banquet. And man, they would just, you know, people would come from all over the place to hear them talk, you know, about, you know, what they gonna do, what they ain't gonna do. And, you know, I mean, Gunslinger was, I mean, Archie was, he was a showman, man, not just as well on the field, but off the field as well. So those was great times, man. Coach, hey, he still threw for 358, Rocky. I just threw for 405. You know what I mean? He still threw for 3 touchdowns. I had 6 that night. So it was still, you know, stuff going back and forth, man, with Coach, man. Todd
were y'all playing on air? Did y'all play? Was any defenses there?
Hey, it was on television, and the game lasted almost 4 hours.
Yep.
The game was on television.
And that was the game that Jerry got discovered. He really got discovered by Bill Walsh that game. He came over and he watched Jerry play, and I'll never forget, he told the story that he watched him in the hotel, and he watched that game because Jerry did put on a show, even though we didn't play as well as we had played the previous games. But that's how he got discovered, though.
Let me ask you, Coach. Let me ask Coach one thing. I know you were a player back then, and you were sought after as well. I know from talking to other scouts, pro scouts during those times, a lot of them got fired because they didn't rank Jerry as a first rounder.
Right.
Bill Walsh came and snuck him. Nobody really knew. So my question to you, Willie, was a lot of scouts coming out there to see him, or
we did,
you know, doing practice and stuff?
We had scouts there every day. I mean, every that's I'm telling you, man. It seemed like then we seemed like we were celebrities. I mean, we had major TV networks, sports network. We had scouts at practice every day. And I think what happened is a lot of those guys were looking at Mississippi Valley as just what I said. They said that it didn't seem like it was real. What we were doing didn't look real, but it was real. If you came to the game and you watched the film, it was incredible, you know. And we were not trying to set records. You know, we were just out there having fun. And I know teams after that and trying to set records. And if we were really trying to set records, I think we could have put them out so far that no one probably could ever break them. Because a lot of time I didn't even play in the fourth quarter. But scouts was at the game. Yes, they were there. But sometimes you missed. And they definitely missed on Willie Totten.
Well, let me add something to that too, because I give you perspective of that for people that don't remember. Al Toon went early to the Jets. Eddie Brown went to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Everybody thought, now mind you, this is back in the time when Cowboys were really America's team, them and Pittsburgh Steelers. Everybody thought that Jerry Rice was going to get drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. But who had the pick in front of them? The San Francisco 49ers. And that's how Jerry Rice became a 49, because Dallas had scouted him, kind of kept it under wraps.
That's right.
They kept it under wraps because they thought they had discovered him. They thought they had discovered him.
Yeah, Gil Brandt used to be at our practice. That was a scout. He used to be at our practice every day.
And what happened, Coach, on another thing, he came in. I think he came, because I don't think this is before the private jets, because I think he came to Jackson Airport and tried to sneak in almost a little bit to let it be known. So that's why I want people to understand the level of people to understand the talent they have. Now, Coach, I'm trying to get us through because I'm getting to a point. You guys blow Prairie View out, you put 70. The game of the century. one of the seminal games in the history of HBCU football. You all basically 1 and 2 Alcorn in black college football. Tell us about that game. 63,000, which I think is still the record in that stadium.
Still the record. Yeah,
still the record. Move the game to a Sunday, shown on WLBT. Coach, talk about, and not only that, the level of play that you saw between yourself, Jerry Rice, and Isaac Holt. That was just a battle within itself. Tell people about that game, because, guys, I'm going to tell you something. This was one of those games that, you know, for the younger people, you remember the Texas USC game? This was on that level of that type of the feel of the game, the level of play, because, again, at this, to Coach's point, everybody knew about the Satellite Express. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew it. They were a national phenomenon. And then, again, to play Alcorn. So, Coach, talk a little bit about basically the game of the century.
Well, it was just that. I mean, they knew coming up to that game, and Chuck Prophet, the athletic director, they had to move the game because both teams was undefeated. We had the #1 offense in black college football, and Alcorn at the time had the #1 defense in black college football. So they kind of blew the game up, and they said that to play that game at Mississippi Valley, we probably wasn't going to have enough room. So what they did that Saturday, Mississippi State and Ole Miss played in the stadium that Saturday. And in order for us to play, we had to play on a Sunday. So we couldn't play the game that Saturday, so they moved the game to that Sunday, and that's how we ended up playing on Sunday. And we played it at the time when, you know, when people had the opportunity to go to church and then come to the game. I think the game was at 2:00. I remember when we got to the game is at 2:00. We get to the game around 10:30, 11 o'clock. It was like 30, 40,000 people already in the stadium. Wow. This is before we even get to the stadium. The stadium was already packed. And when we walked out there for pregame, and I couldn't believe it. It seemed like we were walking on cloud 9 because of the energy in the stadium. It was just phenomenal. And to see that many people in that stadium and to come out there and play the way we did, we put on a show. I mean, Alcorn jumped out on us, and we came back and tied the game up 28-28. And I mean, people were going crazy, you know, and they had a good game plan. They had a good game plan. They held every game. They held every play. They was holding Jerry and the receivers, and they were going to make the referee call the game. And the referees, they were not going to call a holding on every play. They called some holding, but there's a lot of them they didn't call because the game was so long, because they could have called holding on every play. And I think that was their scheme. Their scheme was to hold.
Yeah, when you say that, Coach, see, they played a lot of man coverage. That's all what Marino Castro ever believed in, was man on man. And they had what, 2 or 3 guys got drafted from that secretary. One couple of them all that game.
They did. Isaac Holt. I know we went back and looked at the film. Isaac Holt and Jerry. That was the show. That was, everybody would come to see that combination. But they were holding. Ike Hope was holding Jerry underneath, and then Tony Wolfall was holding Jerry over the top. So they played him. They had 2 safeties, and they played man across the board. They played.
Well, I'll say this as a Dallas Cowboy fan, and unfortunately, at some point, Ike Hope became a Dallas Cowboy, and he never stopped holding them, and they was calling it.
Right. So, right. Well, that and you know, after that game, we talked about, you know, the holding call. We went back and looked at the film. Coach Cooley, he wrote into the conference office, and we counted, even though they had a lot of penalties that game, we counted 24 holds that they didn't call. So that means that game probably would have gone 6 hours if the referee would have thrown the flag on every time they was holding it. And they had a good scheme. I mean, we should have been running the football, but Coach Cooley, I'll never forget, he said, can't nobody stop my shit. And so and what happened, I think that game, Coach Chasm, they had a great game plan. They only rushed 3 guys.
Yeah.
Now, Coach, I'm gonna say one thing about that game in Mississippi history. That was the game, and I'm telling you, Rocky, this is honest God truth.
Coach Battery may have died, so he may have to come back and get with us because it looked like he froze on us.
Well, let me say this, man. That game was over 62,000. That was registered. They had so many people that you couldn't even walk up the steps. They had started covering the steps because it was just so many people there. And you know, and Willie Totten, out of the player, he just as good as the man as well. And nobody has accomplished that feat that Gunslinger accomplished with that team. But Willie is the only coach that got close when he was there coaching in Mississippi Valley as the head coach. And that was a great opportunity for him to come back and be the head coach. And actually took him. And I think that one winning season, and matter of fact, he beat us when we were at Alabama State. So he did just as good as job, being a player as a coach in Mississippi Valley.
Let me ask you this, Coach Cole, because I want to get back to the Satellite Express for a moment, Coach. When you guys were watching the Satellite Express on film, right? And I know you weren't a defensive player at all, but you had defensive players on your teams, and at the end of the day, were they shocked by what they were experiencing on the field?
Well, let me say this. They were so exciting that I know at my camp at Texas Southern, hell, we watched the defensive side and the offensive side. They were putting up so many numbers. I mean, you was like, sheesh, man, what are they doing on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, on the offensive side of the ball. Me being a quarterback. But it was all over. I mean, the formations they've had was like, it's almost like when somebody is running trick plays all the time. And they got, man, this ain't no football. This ain't no football. Because they were doing stuff that never had been done, on a college level. Stacking 3 receivers back, going no back, 3-2, 4-1. You know what I mean? Coming with the jet sweep. I mean, it was amazing to watch. It's no different than what they're doing now. You know what I mean? It's just that they didn't get a lot of credit for it. You know what I'm saying? And they actually made defenses change. You know what I mean? They you couldn't just sit there and play 40 down and have everybody up front. You had to play back. Because let me say this to you, and Totten talked about them. They had tons of fun. Every guy on the offensive line was 300 plus.
300 plus.
And they were athletes. And then Carl Byron was set at about 6'1", 6'2", tailback. You know what I'm saying? And then they had all the wide receivers with Joe and DeBarlo, and those guys were quick, fast guys that got bubble screens. I mean, they were doing all and going no huddle. You know what I'm saying? So it was exciting to watch, man. It was a pleasure. But at the end of the day, he got off of that.
And I won $500 for lunch for keeping up with the Jonas Bracket Challenge.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.